Welcome to our Animal Justice Academy Lunchtime Live, Ways to Advocate for Vegan Fashion with Vikki Lenola. I'm Kimberly Carroll. I'm the director of Animal Justice Academy. Welcome to all you gorgeous folks here with us live, and welcome to those of you who are watching the replay. The fashion industry, folks, oh my goodness, exploits 5 billion animals every year between animals used for fur, for leather, for wools, down and feathers. But luckily, there is some big momentum in changing that. And Vikki Lenola is part of that change. I want to welcome Vikki here, if we can get her up on Spotlight. I'm not seeing Vikki here. While I'm doing that, let me tell you more about the fabulous Vikki. Vikki Lenola is a model and dancer, a vegan fashion influencer, an activist, and a publicist. She's the founder of Lenola PR, a public relations agency that promotes talent and ethical brands, and producer director of the Vegan Fashion Show, which showcases animal-free fashion and innovative materials. She has a background in environmental studies, business, and effective altruism for animal advocacy. Vikki is passionate about using her platform to highlight sustainable and compassionate alternatives in fashion. Vikki, so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here, and thank you for everything you're doing to help our fellow animal advocates and change makers.
Aw, thank you, Vikki. It's so good to finally get to talk to you. I remember hearing about you a few years ago when you were first brought the vegan fashion show to life, and you made Animal Justice the beneficiary of that, which was wonderful. And I remember Camille Labchak, our executive director at Animal Justice, coming back and saying, that was really good. She was so impressed because we've seen vegan fashion shows before, but this was the real deal. So Vikki, tell us about your path through the fashion world. And you played so many different roles. And so from the beginning of it to where you are, just start here with the vegan fashion show. Give us a little rundown.
Yeah, so in 2014, I had an accessories brand for bridal accessories, and we were the exclusive supplier for a bridal boutique in Cambridge, Ontario. And I also helped out with alterations. I understudied a dressmaker from Europe, and I could do pattern drafting, just taking the measurements and make a dress fit like a glove. So I could design a dress like that. And I got a Facebook that year. I didn't have internet or any social media till, well into my adult years. And then so someone that became my friend later, they found me through Facebook. And so they have a fashion week around here. And, of course, they invited me to the fashion week. They're hoping that I would show my collection there and take interest for that. But because I'm so tall, I was mistaken for a model backstage. And of course, I got all caught up with the glitz and glam of it. I'm 5'10", so I'm very tall. And then so I was like, hey, you know what? I'll just sew later in life because I can always come back to that. You're only young once. And at the time, I was already old to be a model. So I was just happy to be there. And yeah, so I did all sorts of runway modeling. I did a lot. I worked for dozens of designers. But then it's not the best pay in the world. So, I extended the jobs that I got into, like the gig economy, I guess. And I just took more jobs that were related. So like glamour modeling, promotional modeling, go-go dancing. I got Instagram, and I did some influencer gigs, but then also some not so glamorous jobs. Because what happens is there's a lot of like modeling agencies that are / event staffing agencies. And so I would think, oh, well, maybe if I do like the boring jobs, they'll hire me for like the better jobs. And to an extent, that was true. I remember one time, so I was doing like brand ambassador jobs and event staffing too sometimes. And I remember one time I got booked for, who was it? I think a Sean Paul music video, and I was all excited, but I couldn't take it because I was already booked for this other brand ambassador job I thought it was a pretty lame product. Yeah, so I was like, oh, I can't do it. But anyways, all of these experiences, I worked with so many brands, both small and large, some of the biggest brands in the world. And, you get to learn their strategies and their goals and, what their needs are. And I feel like that really helps me to serve brands today.
And you, I mean, you're not just a little influencer. I mean, you, I know on Facebook you've got over a 500,000 followers, and then I'm not sure. I don't even know what you're doing on Instagram. So, but like, how did you build that over the years?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, so now, if I kept on just posting like bikini photos, okay, you guys, I would have millions of followers by now,
Yeah,
but actually,
yeah.
so Facebook, I mean, I could talk about this all day too, because I love social media now.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook, I started doing like share for share with other pages. Instagram is different. There's different strategies, and it's a whole other ball game now than it was when I started. And so I haven't grown that much. And especially since I've been changing my audience a lot, I have more and more, vegans following me, people following
Mm-hmm.
me for that stuff rather than just because I'm just some chick,
Yeah,
you
yes,
know?
yes, that's right.
So yeah, so I'm losing a lot of followers, but I'm also gaining, but I am losing more than I'm gaining, but
Right. That's
and
what
I'm okay
happens
with
when you
that.
pivot, right? You pivot your
Yeah.
focus. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and everything's just changing, just like the algorithms and everything like that. And I'm fine with it. I used to have like I could have like 20,000 likes on a post, and now it's like on Facebook. And then yeah, and then now it's like I have a couple hundred because that's like boring stuff to some people, but it's what I
Right.
care about, and that's what I
Yeah.
post. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the thing is you're getting a really you're probably getting a much more committed audience now too, that you can influence in the way that you're hoping to influence the world. So I love that. I love that you have been sort of changing. And also social media is just yeah, like you said, completely different now. You cannot build the same way that you used to be able to.
Yeah,
So
you have
yeah.
to like be so good at content creation. Before it was just like post a picture, but now it's so much more than that. So
Yeah. Well, okay. So I want to find out a little bit, what made you start waking up to the whole environmental and ethical harm of animal-based fashion? Like, was there an aha moment kind of thing, that pivoted you?
yeah, and it's hard to think about like the big moment for me is I saw this video, and it's like hard to not get emotional thinking about it. And many of you probably have seen this video. It's a PETA undercover investigation of fur farms. And it's a raccoon dog, and they skinned it alive, and it's on a pile of dead bodies and just kind of slowly moves its head and blinks, and all you see, it almost looked like it had eyelashes. I don't know, it was just some leftover skin on it. And
Mhm.
then, but nothing else, no skin, no fur, just blood and muscle. And I just, I was so shocked and angry that this kind of thing was hidden from me. And I couldn't imagine, like it's incomprehensible the amount of pain that this animal was going through. And so I couldn't go on business as usual with my day-to-day life. I just knew in my heart this was wrong, and I had to do something about it. Um, yeah, but then the environmental part, I was an environmental student, so that was kind of how that, I put the two together, and think about fashion because I'm interested in fashion. So yeah, and then actually, so all of this stuff spurred my activism, and I started out as a fur protester, right? And thankfully, I found the Toronto Animal Rights Calendar, and so I went to my first
Shout
fur
out to Jenny
protest. Yeah,
McQueen.
woo. And so this is still in 2014, and I remember because I'm based in Waterloo, so I remember going to Toronto, and like no one knew me there. Maybe some of you on here were there. I don't know. Could be. Um, and then people were looking at me like, "Who's this girl?" No one talked to me, and that's fine. It's like now
Oh,
I know it's kind of a small community. Normally, when you go to these things, you know someone else or you've seen someone around. But it was my
right.
first time, and yeah, I have to confess something though, you guys.
Mm,
My first time doing a fur protest, I wasn't vegan yet,
right.
so I was just, I was starting to cut down on meat, like one by one. Like I wasn't eating beef or pork. I always thought bacon was gross. And then I was just realizing that dairy was making my body feel gross, and I was becoming intolerant or sensitive, like
Mm.
lactose sensitive. And but I was still like grappling with all of this like cognitive dissonance and um, trying to, work it out. And it took a while for me to kind of understand that this is really hypocritical of me. I'm like saying like fur is bad, but then I'm like eating some animals still. And so, I
And I
dealt
think,
with that, the uncomfortableness of it. And then I figured out,
yes.
I got to just commit and fully commit to, doing the least harm and avoiding harming animals in all of my fashion choices, with my beauty products, with my household products, with my food and entertainment. And so really, I think like my point really is that vegan fashion can be a gateway to for people to learn about and think about veganism in general.
Yeah, absolutely great point, Vicky. And it's something that I'm very passionate about is you don't like if somebody comes in and they haven't done the animal rights thing in all of the ways, just bring them in, give them a sense of community, and in no time at all, if that's done right, then they're going to come around. They were obviously drawn for a reason. They care. So all you have to do with folks like that is welcome them and keep cultivating that. So let's talk more, Vicky, about the ethical, harm of the animal use in the fashion industry. As I mentioned at the beginning, 5 billion animals used and abused by the fashion industry. Can you outline some of what is happening in terms of the different areas of the fashion industry?
Yeah, so I believe that stat is from Four Paws International, and most of those animals are from what we could say is like the more obvious things like fur, leather, and down and such. And by far, vast majority of these are factory farmed animals, and over 1 billion of these are for leather specifically. And leather, of course, is not a byproduct; it's a co-product because it is as valuable as the meat, um, or dead carcasses.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then but there's less obvious items too. I learned from my friend at Feather Phase Out. You might see these like really soft little light fluffy feathers on some things. Like they're on a lot of girly clothes, like lingerie or robes, and they're also on crafts like arts and crafts. And so they're often labeled as faux marabou feathers. So people think that they're fake, right? That would make sense. The word faux is in it. But actually, it comes from, well, the behind area of turkeys. So just instead of using a marabou bird, they're using a different bird. They're calling it faux. So it's very misleading. And it's just,
Yeah.
I've been an activist for quite a while now, and I'm just always finding out new ways that people are exploiting animals. It's really sad.
Oh,
Um,
you're talking to me, sister, about that. It just feels like I've been in this for over 20 years, and I am amazed how I learn new ways of exploitation. It's unbelievable.
It's
So
horrible. Yeah. And then I just wanted to mention too about like silk, because do we mention the silkworms too in these stats? Because with that, I think it's rethinking priorities. Their stats are 400 billion to a trillion
yeah,
silkworms are
I was
killed
just
every year.
speaking to somebody who's an expert in this, and they said it's 1 trillion silkworms, 1 trillion a year.
And it's
Unbelievable.
like either boiled alive or pinned to death. And then there's a Himsa silk that people think is better. So the silkworm that is making the cocoon, they're allowed to escape. But then what happens, with the breeding and everything like this, there's so many silkworms that starve to death. So in some ways, it could also be like it's, who are we to play God and say like whose life is worth more? But in some ways, you're killing more. So yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, you're killing beings that don't want to be killed. And so yes, there's so many. And I mean, I think probably the one that we're most aware of is the fur industry. Anybody who's in any sort of form of animal activism usually gets some sense of the fur industry. But can you talk a little bit about some of the cruelty that's involved in fur?
Yeah, so like for I think people think that it's ethical. It's like one of the reasons why I started the vegan fashion show is because I've seen firsthand backstage at these fashion shows, and people are calling for ethical and sustainable, and they have no idea where it's coming from. And it's just there's so much greenwashing and humane washing. But yeah, so in some places there, and it's not to blame, like it's not a cultural thing. I don't want to say like, oh, blame China, because like we do some things here that are also
We
very
have
bad, you
Canada
know. So
Goose, we're the
right.
home of Canada Goose. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like some places they're getting skinned alive, and some places they're getting electrocuted, but when it really comes down to it, it's like none of these animals want to die for fur, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And I think it's maybe important for us to also just touch on to wool, because that's one that so many people don't think of. It's, oh, well, they need to be shaved, and it's just, that's actually doing a service to the sheeps. So can you speak a little bit about wool and sort of what's involved in the animal cruelty that can be involved in with the raising of sheep?
yeah, so a lot of it is like the mulesing, it's like in like the tail docking, and there's also it's called sheep dipping. So that's a chemical that's used in the process to kind of keep like the flies in such a way, and it's toxic. And a lot of people think that none of them are dying. Like of course they're treated brutally, and we've seen these videos, but also a million of them are dying a year just as babies in the wool industry, just waiting, just being forgotten about in the fields in Australia.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah, and then there's a lot of transport, all that sort of thing. It's a terrible scene. And I think there's a lot of folks that are really like ears perked up when you said leather is not a byproduct, because that's what we hear all the time. And you said it's a co-product. So
Mhm.
can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so a byproduct is like they're trying to make it sound like, oh, well, we're gonna kill the animal anyways, so it only makes sense to use it. But if we're making the same amount of money or more sometimes from the product, this product would still exist even if people weren't eating meat. And of course, the meat industry itself is not sustainable either, so and it's not healthy. So like I don't know why we would want to prop that up. And then, furthermore with that, there's studies from Collective Fashion Justice. They have another kind of like subsection of that, Circumfauna. They did a study where, you know, actually processing the leather and all of this, and when you put it into waste, it causes more pollution than if you just let the cowhide rot in the landfill. So there's just because of all the chemical processes and
Absolutely. Well, and yeah, so it just goes to the idea that when one can make all this extra money off of selling an animal's skin as well as their flesh, that makes it much more like it's much more probable that the animal will be farmed. And also, I believe in India, especially where there a lot of the furniture gets their leather for, those animals aren't even used for meat. So yes,
mm.
so there's a lot to be said about the cruelty. And let's talk also about the environmental aspect of animals in fashion. The fashion industry has a really terrible environmental footprint, and which is bad for animals, including us human animals. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so anytime we're going to talk about animal agriculture being used, it's a top contributor to so many things we want to avoid: climate change, biodiversity loss, ocean acidification, and deforestation, and zoonotic disease, and antibiotic overuse. And so this slide here, this is it just came in handy because we taught this to some of the models that auditioned. This is just a couple of the slides. We taught a lot more, but just as a simple comparison, so with cow leather versus Deserto, which is cactus leather, versus Mirum, and I chose these things because these are the most commercially available right now. So with leather, and we had a World Water Day theme because it was around World Water Day. So it's mostly about leather. So animal leather from cows is requiring excessive water, not just for the cows themselves, but for processing the leather. And then the output is huge amounts of methane, which is causing climate change. And then cactus leather, it only needs the rainfall to water the cacti. And so this is sequestering the carbon, so it's helping to slow climate change. And then with the mirum, it's a really great material. It's also made from plants, zero plastic, no additional water needed, low carbon. According to the Stella McCartney website, it has 10 times less carbon compared to animal leather. It's circular. It's like there's really no faults. It's endlessly recyclable. I don't like to say that too much because then people think that's the only way to reuse it, but it's circular too. So really it's biodegradable, but they don't have the certification for it yet. So we're saying circular for now, but in theory it should biodegrade. Some of these material companies have the certification, some of them do not.
Mhm. And then I think, as far as the environmental aspect too, I guess, oh, yeah, so tell us, yeah, more about the water pollution, more about the tanneries.
Yeah, so it's bad for people too, people that live around the tanneries and work at the tanneries. So this person here was a farmer for many years, and these are the kind of skin conditions you can see. You can look here if the Pulitzer Center, they have a whole thing about this, and there's a YouTube video. There's many YouTube videos that will show you things like this actually. Um, because of all the toxins, and like there's children working away in toxic suits of toxins barefoot, to process this leather, and it gets into our water, it gets into our food systems, and it's causing health problems, and a lot of people are suffering from it.
I didn't even reckon, like when I looked at that picture, I thought, oh, there's dirt on their legs, but that's their skin. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Okay, so thank you for just giving us a little bit of that lowdown. So let's talk about, is it possible to have the style that, the fashionistas want without the harm, or just regular people want? I'm hearing, and again, this is not at all my area of expertise, but I've just been hearing more and more about all these innovative and sustainable non-animal materials that are being developed and really, really sort of getting injected into the fashion world. So Vicky, tell us, give us a little taste of what's sort of out there.
Yeah, I could talk about this for so long. I'll try to fit it all in, but yeah, there's you know, biodegradable faux furs made from plants, not plastic now. And these faux furs have 40 to 90% less CO2 emissions compared to animal fur, and that's according to Material Innovation Initiative. There's biodegradable vegetable dyes and glitter. Glitter is actually banned in Europe right now unless it's biodegradable. So I'd
Really?
like to see
Wow.
that here. And there's even plastic-free alternatives to plastic. So for example, excuse me, Rion Materials, they have a plastic alternative that can be used for like sunglasses or maybe the hardware of handbags. But the biggest like boom in vegan fashion would be for leather alternatives. So we can use plants now, cactus, corn, leather, apples, grapes, tea, coffee. Really, you can use just about any fruits or vegetables, to be honest with you. And then a lot of these are using waste material from fruit and vegetable agriculture. But I don't want to lie or mislead anybody. Many of these materials, they're many times better than the old school cheap vegan leather that just crumbles apart and is 100% vegan leather. You go to the furniture
Polyvinyl,
store
yes.
sometimes, they still have it. And I'm like, oh, no wonder why people think vegan leather sucks, right?
Yeah.
So these ones, they are better for the environment, but also like they still have, my point is, a little bit of plastic in them, a lot of them. It could be 1%, it could be 40%, it's to varying degrees. Even I want to point out though that animal leather is often coated in plastic. That's something they don't tell you. So yeah, but there are also zero plastic leather alternatives now. And these are groundbreaking materials. So Nuvi makes them, Revolt Tech, Alt Leather, Miram, as we were talking about, and Lucky Nelly Berlin. They have plastic-free alternatives that are beautiful, very luxurious. And, what a time to be alive, because we're really at this time where these materials are just coming out. Even in 2022, when we had our first show, it was like these were not commercially available yet. Still a lot of them are not. Miram is the most commercially available. And so in 2022, I got this one handbag, one of the first Miram handbags in the world. And I was so proud of this. And my partner, he's used to seeing me like unpacking influencer things. And so he's like, oh, another handbag. That one's nice. Good for you. And I was like, I brought it and I was like, this isn't just another handbag. This is the future. This is going to stop so many animals from suffering. And it's true. It's
Amazing.
like it's that big of a deal. And I really
Can,
like the
can,
strategy behind these materials right now is to get them to the luxury brands right now. Because so Material Innovation Initiative, they're unfortunately no longer funded, but you can still see some of their work on their YouTube, I believe. So they
and
did a
Vicky, I'll just
study.
tell you, I think that's actually changing. I think they're coming back.
Oh, yes, that's
Yeah.
great. That's really great news. Yeah, we
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
them.
Hmm.
Yes, amazing. So happy to hear this. So, one thing I learned from them with their one study is that they were checking to see, will people use these materials? And then why not? So while most people were keen to try them, the ones that were not, the biggest reason that was cited was because they just doubt the durability. And so the strategy right now is to start with the luxury brands having these materials only so that we can prove that it is durable, it's high end, it's luxurious. So yeah, in the meantime, I mean, it's not going to be very affordable for people. But I can always list off some brands for you if you like that are more affordable. But before that, I do want to also mention that there are some materials that have been around for hundreds of years, like ancient materials like lotus silk or kapak pods. I don't know if I'm saying kapak right. It starts with a K, but they're these pods that open up and they're really fluffy material inside, and they're found at the top of a tropical tree. And this fluffy material, it's a down alternative, and it's organic and it's great. And then yes, there's a precision fermentation, which is making great strides in food innovation as well as fashion innovation. So a lot of us are familiar with fermentation with, yogurt and kombucha and beer, right? So precision fermentation is really the next evolution of that. So we can give instructions to the microbes on what to recreate, and we can recreate genetically identical proteins as to what's found in nature. And so that's how spider silk is made. So despite its name, it is vegan. And then there's also a company doing this with fur as well. And I imagine we'll see more of this in the future.
Amazing. Um, One of the things that I just want to sort of throw in there is I'm a little bit stumped as to some of these faux furs these days are so beautiful and amazing, but I'm afraid to wear them because I don't want to promote actual animal fur. So what do you do around that? Like, do you have to wear a big button that says not no fur, or like is that something that you sort of have to struggle with at all? I mean, I guess it's the same with leather. If you make the plant-based leather look good, then is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a hard place to kind of navigate.
It is tricky, and I don't want to be the one to give anyone their advice on that because I think it's also situational too. For example, I know we're talking about fur, but I'm going to switch just as an example to feathers because our 2023 show, we had a performer come up from Los Angeles, and she's the one campaigner for Feather Phase Out that I was talking about earlier. And she performed a burlesque performance with these faux feathers made from pampas grass, and they were beautiful. But we spent like 10 minutes giving a whole presentation about why we're using this. It's not for every day. It's for performers in all these like arts industries that like need feathers. And so that's why we did that. With fur, I do sometimes like I didn't want to have this one brand because their faux fur looks so real, and it didn't work out anyways, but I don't know that I would feel comfortable promoting that. It's really a tricky situation. I agree. It's like, and who am I to say what's right or what's wrong? Because I do want to see good alternatives that look like the same thing, but it's going to be hard to regulate. Like in California, it's really hard to regulate. Is it faux fur? Is it real fur? Is it old fur? Is it new fur? Because right now they're allowed to sell only, like vintage fur. But it's like, how do we regulate these things? So these are challenging questions.
Yeah, and hopefully questions that won't matter in a few years when it's all pervasive, and people would be like assuming it's vegan leather, assuming it's faux fur. I think a lot of people these days do assume it's faux fur. Like they're yes, there's collars, but when it's a whole coat, people are like, you're not usually seeing a full fur coat anymore. That's really ostentatious, and people would be, it wouldn't happen very often, luckily. But yeah, so an interesting thing to talk about, and I think you're right. I think if you're you're in fashion, to be able to showcase some of that, you're going to be talking about it a lot. But if you're not, then you're not getting a chance to talk about what you're wearing. It might not be as a good of a form of activism. So okay, so you mentioned some names, like you've been mentioning some names, and I would love if you could rattle off a few different brands, designers that you think we should check out and maybe make other people aware of. So, and you also have a resource for this.
Yeah, we have an affiliate shop on our website at theveganfashionshow.org/shop. And it has things for different price ranges. We have items for fashion, as well as beauty and wellness, and some free resources on there too. So Malin and Company here, they have Lotus Silk, and we have special discounts for everybody. So they are a Canadian company, and we explain what we love about each brand as well as what makes them sustainable. Because, a lot of places are like, oh, it's sustainable. But if you just say that and there's nothing to back it up, that's just greenwashing. Number 49, if you're able to scroll down, this is another Canadian brand. And both these brands have been in our shows before. And so every product that they sell, they have a program where 2 pounds of plastic waste is removed from the ocean. So I really like that. I think it's more towards at the top. There is Pixie Mood somewhere. Oh, there we go. So, and this is another more affordable brand. So I do want to talk about, they're Canadian too. I do want to talk about that. So those brands, the more affordable ones, they're using recycled materials. And so I wouldn't say that recycled materials is like an amazing answer for clothing because you can't keep on recycling it. But for products that are going to be around for a while, I would imagine accessories, I do think it's a good idea because we do need to, do something with the plastic materials that are out there already. But just keep in mind, it's not like the best solution, but it's far better than buying new products. Absolutely. And then further down, we have some other options that have Miram, which is of course going to cost more. Savala, I'm not sure where they're from, Los Angeles, I think. Lost Woods is an Australian company. Leafy, they're going to be at our show this coming May, and we have some great footage of someone that saw, just like a random person at one of our shows that saw a product made from these. They're teak leaves specifically, and they were just blown away by it. And Vera, unfortunately, is closing down. Vose and Company has been with us a couple of times too. So they have cactus leather boots as well as corn leather sneakers. Yeah. So, and then the rest is mostly just like other items you may want to explore, beauty, wellness, things like this.
Amazing. And so Kirsten will put the link for that into the chat. So if she hasn't already, for folks to be able to check out. And I'd love to hear in the chat too, what folks that are here, what vegan brands, stores, things that I'm here seeing some of the materials that you've gotten. But yeah, just to do some information sharing of what you like. I think that's always helpful because when you start talking about vegan, sort of getting rid of your animal product fashion to people, they're like, well, what's the alternative? So get those alternatives going. I would love to see some of them. So how receptive has the fashion world been, Vicky, in adopting these fabrics and textiles?
Well, so as a publicist, I mean, I can like kind of twist some arms and get people interested in the solutions and the new materials. But, the problem is a lot of people don't know, and so it's like, it's really the blind leading the blind out there in the media world. And, and even in person too, I went to I'm not going to say which fashion week it was, but they had a sustainable fashion panel, and not a single one of them mentioned animal agriculture. And then I noticed in Vogue Germany a couple of years ago, there was a really big brand, and they had their sustainability director doing an interview, and he stated that there's no such thing as vegan leather that doesn't have plastic, and that's simply not true. It wasn't true at the time, and it's even less true now, as every year there's more and more booming, innovation. And then one time, my PR agency representing a vegan fashion brand, we got them in, and I won't say the name of the publication, but you could say it's the biggest business publication in the world. And the contributor writing the article was a sustainable fashion expert. And they even had their own sustainable fashion magazine. And I gave them all the material that they needed to learn about cactus leather. And they had no idea what cactus leather was. They had no idea of the benefits. And they actually wrote the whole article as if the point was that my client was trying to save cactus plants. Oh, they were so upset, and I was just so floored. And but luckily, we got them to correct it. But I was just like, how do you not know these things, right? And so I think the problem is people are so busy to be, in their day-to-day lives, and they're busy meeting their deadlines. And so it's really hard to get people to learn something new unless you make it interesting. And so I think that's one thing that we're trying to address at the Vegan Fashion Show. And yeah, to make learning fun. And we also have some great visuals, which I know the media likes as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the vegan fashion show. So I'm assuming what inspired you to launch it was just this idea that we need to educate and we need to show as opposed to doing it person by person. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the vegan fashion show and sort of what it is as an initiative.
Yeah, so we're not a vegan club. We are a bridge between the vegan community and the fashion community. And everything we do is intentional. Um, you know, the media, for example, is a big thing. The media, it has a dual purpose, really. So one thing is that it's it's helping to get our message further out there, but it's like reaching thousands of more people, but it's also training AI as well. Because, AI is scanning the web when people are looking up sustainable and ethical fashion. And we really want vegan fashion to be part of that narrative, especially when it's feeding it back to the users. So, and I think especially right now in this day and age where AI is just really starting to boom before it snowballs, we really want to get that narrative in there beforehand. And I think top tier publications have a really good chance to be picked up with AI. And then also we really consider search engine optimization when we're pitching the media. But then the other purpose of the media, like the big press hits that we got, would be it's kind of like a lure, It's kind of it's what we're offering to get people interested, to pay attention, and to bring them into our world. So for example, outreach, maybe you give someone a cookie for watching a video, right? But then, the more you're asking, the more you have to offer. I think some of us might know an activist named Malcolm, and he took it upon himself to do these undercover investigations with these big
Yeah.
farms,
Yeah.
all across Ontario. And I remember years and years ago, he did this Halloween outreach event. Well, and it's not really an outreach. It was just this movie, this documentary. I think it was Earthlings, and he was getting people to watch it. And his offer was, if you can watch this whole spooky movie, you have a chance to win $500. So the more you're asking people to do, the more you have to offer. And so we're asking, I think, people a lot to just people that just normally don't care about these things to sit down and watch these long presentations and really take us seriously for the whole time. And yeah, it goes pretty good. I mean, if it's just like regular outreach, we're not going to convert everybody, but some people it's going to click with them, and some people it's not. And we're just about planting the seeds. And yeah, our model castings are really interesting. They're events on their own. Like we had this year, we had the co-founder of African Fashion Week. He was a guest model judge, and I think he said it really good himself. He was like, oh, well, with our model castings, the model comes in, they walk, they leave, and that's it, and that's how all of the castings I've been to have been. But ours is really unique in that it's an event, right? So we do the presentation. Jessica Ambro did the 10-minute presentation, who I met through Animal Justice because we were regularly volunteering, like
Nice.
multiple times we've
Yeah.
volunteered at
Yeah,
Animal
we love
Justice.
Jessica.
So, and I'm so thankful that she's joined us this year, and she's just brought her go-getter attitude. And I don't think I would be able to keep on going on without her. So I'm just really thankful she's
Yeah.
here. And
Um,
yeah.
So
So
Vicky, can we just back up just a bit because I guess just the whole overview of the vegan fashion show is that you do you basically put together an entire fashion show for big either on its own in a city like Toronto, or you do it for a bigger event that's happening as one of the features, right? So you've been
okay, sorry. Yeah, I should have
yeah.
probably started that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Just so people get an idea of how this all works.
Yeah, so in 2022 and 2023, we had our own events. The second one doubled in size. And yes, so we donated to Animal Justice. Unfortunately, we were not able to now that we partner with bigger, larger events. So Planted Expo, VegTO, we recently signed a contract with the National Women's Show. So we're really excited about that because that's going to take us all across Canada over the years.
Excellent. That's so
Yeah.
good.
So now that we're doing that, it's just in collaboration with our partnership events. And yes, so we feature multiple brands. So it's like a fashion week. So you're seeing multiple brands. We're just the ones organizing.
Yeah. So you're bringing these, you're bringing vegan fashion into these venues where there wouldn't have been. And now with the women's show, you're taking it into non-vegan spaces to be able to really showcase it to a larger audience. So that's the sort of thing that you're just going to try to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and get it into more places where you can. And so what's the actual show like? So you've got the runway, but there's an educational element to it as well, is there?
Yes, everywhere. We're sprinkling educational pieces everywhere we go. So during the actual shows too. So it varies year by year. So when we had our own events, we had like speakers, we would play documentary trailers, and now at our partnership events, last year I was a speaker at Planted Expo, so that was different. So the first 15 minutes I was speaking, then now we're doing it where this is better for me though, actually, to give it some time. So we'll do one collection from one designer, and then I'm going to talk for about 5 minutes about something else, and then we continue that cycle. And one other different thing that we do that other fashion events don't do is we interview the designers in front of the audience. And one of the questions I ask them is, why is it important to you to use vegan materials? And a lot of them are very passionate about this.
Mm, love it. And yeah, and I think it's brilliant that you do with these with the fashion calls, with the model calls, that you do quite an incredible presentation with them. And so once they've had this experience, this is a lot of models we're talking about that are going out into the fashion industry and taking these ideals with them. You've actually got a video, a little short video that we'll bring up and just to show what some of the models had to say after this experience.
And what did you learn today about vegan fashion?
Well, we don't need to kill animals to stay stylish.
For me, is being new to this industry. I think I didn't know that a lot of the fashion were like directly harming like the animals, and I think it's just good to be aware of that going into this industry.
I actually learned a lot, to be honest with you, especially with the toxins in the water and like all the microplastics and everything, and just the way that animals are hurt and the amount of animals that we actually do kill every year was genuinely a shock to me. So I'm actually going to go home and kind of look into it and see what little adjustments I can make. So
I actually learned about a lot of the sustainability that goes around in big major fashion weeks that I actually had no idea about. Such more sustainable options.
And that there's some great options that aren't made of plastic and that you can use plant-based material to have that very edgy, funky, trendy look of leather. Because
how would we feel if our family is killed just for entertainment purposes, right? It's not good. So we respect them and yeah, be kind, humble.
I like the presentation and everything. It's so empowering to know how cruelty impacts the animal, and it's our responsibility to do something for it, right? And I'm very happy I'm supporting this cause.
Well, we're so happy to have you. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah, phosphor. Yeah, that it emits lesser amount of carbon dioxide to the environment, which is really friendly. And that's really interesting to know that. Yeah.
I was here for the first vegan fashion show, so it's always the same kind of like heart-wrenching but motivating kind of things that we just want to keep this energy going in the industry of like just trying to educate everybody and make things better. So
I've been vegan for 9 years, and honestly, it is such a beautiful thing to see the fashion industry move more into the direction of less cruelty. I feel like having the additional options is something that we definitely need to educate more people about, and I think more education means that more people are going to move towards it. And I just think it's going to be better for everyone.
What did you learn today about vegan fashion?
So many animals killed for fashion. Vegan fashion show is making a fantastic job saving them. And
what did you learn about vegan fashion today?
I mean, just how much, like, I do it for the animals, but I'm like, it's so much more sustainable also for the environment, and it's easier than trying to do it with like animal leather. And so it's like, it's so important we can all just make that change to do it, you know?
Awesome.
Wow. So yeah, you've got a lot of convertees going out into the fashion industry, Vicky.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the, the mix of people learning, and they're very open-minded, and, I think that it's great.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the wins that we're seeing. I mean, it does feel very big and like it's this Herculean task still ahead of us to break through, but there has been some movement. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can, but could I also just quickly mention, like, I'm so thankful for Odd Burger for being at this event, because it also, sorry, because I know we're running out of time, but
Yeah, that's all right.
I think it was so great to introduce the models to vegan food too. And so Odd Burger was so generous to sponsor 100 tacos, wraps, and burgers. And for a lot of these models, this is the first time they ever tried these products. And so Odd Burger, has plant proteins made from simple ingredients, and like the feedback was really amazing. So I just wanted to share, like, we're also sharing about vegan food as well.
Yeah, it's in every aspect. It's backstage, it's on stage, it's like part of the audition process. I mean, it's great. You're using an event, which I think we can all learn from, even if we're not doing fashion. You're using an event to educate people in a really accessible and gentle way. So I love that. You're taking people's interests and you're inserting it into their interests. Okay, so let's talk about wins.
Yeah. So we have a slide. Actually, we also showed this to the models, and like I didn't plan this for this meeting with you today, but we happen to have this. So this is happening, you guys, but we still have to get the ball rolling. So fashion weeks that have banned fur include London, Copenhagen, Helsinki, Amsterdam, Oslo, Stockholm, and Melbourne. And
those are London Fashion Week. That's huge.
Yes, they're they're pretty big, but yes, London is one of the big four, so definitely. And Copenhagen, Helsinki, and Stockholm and Melbourne have banned exotic skins, and a couple of them have even banned feathers. And I do want to mention that the big reason why they are banning them, it's because of the sustainability aspect. So I think it's important to point out that, we need to be part of that conversation. Sustainable fashion is already a hot topic, and we need to be in that conversation. We belong in that conversation. And I really want to take, a lesson from the tobacco and meat industry's playbook. Like, they really nailed influencer marketing. You guys ever seen those like doctor ads where they're promoting cigarettes, like smoke a cigarette and relaxes the baby, and, eat bacon. It's part of a hearty breakfast. This is all intentional, so they know that people take advice from doctors. And so, they influence the influencers. And so we can do this too, but for good reasons. And so people and organizations that are already talking about sustainable fashion, we need to talk to them. We need to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of the fashion weeks, I mean, so many fur lines, especially, or fashion lines, discontinuing fur. Again, thanks to many of the activists, some activists who are here today that have been at it for a long time, doing pressure campaigns on specific designers, specific brands. It's come a long way. So it's just been amazing to see. And I love that tip, Vicky. I mean, we know when we're advocating for veganism as far as food goes, that we often will have to feel out, is the environmental way to go when we're trying to get cities especially to procure more vegan plant-based food. It often starts with the environmental element, right? So, and we got that on our side, so it's definitely important to use. Now, Vicky, before there's a couple more questions I want to ask, but before, in case we have anybody drop off, talk about where they can see this in person, especially if they're in the Toronto area. There's something coming up right away, and that is you showing up at the Planted Expo.
Yeah, so on Mother's Day, actually, so May 11th, if you're looking for something to do, or if any of your friends are, May 11th at the Enercare Center with Planted Expo from 1 to 2 p.m. And you can use our code VeganFashion20 in all caps to get 20% off tickets.
Ooh,
and
nice.
I'm
VeganFashion20. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it's on our flyer too, which is pinned to our Instagram in case you guys forget. And I really adore the Planted Expo team. I had the honor of being their publicist a couple years ago, and I just got to know them individually better, and they're just really good people, and they're doing this to help people. So really hope you guys come out to support.
Amazing.
Bring your vegan and non-vegan friends. There's something for everybody.
Absolutely. It's a great show to bring non-vegans to, the Planted Expo. And will you be doing Vancouver as well?
There's no more Vancouver, you guys, so just like a lot of brands are struggling that it's like we have to downsize for now. It's not like they're never going to go back there, but this year they're not.
Okay, got it.
But we might be there in other places with the National Women's Show, because they're all across Canada.
Okay.
And we're starting with the National Women's Show in November.
Yeah. And where's that?
That one's starting in Toronto, so we're not sure. I don't want to overcommit with how many I can do, but there's just so many options that we can do.
Amazing. Okay, wonderful. Now, Vicky, AJ,
We might come back to Quebec City. Sorry, someone
Oh.
just mentioned that.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Okay, great, great. Yeah, Catherine was asking about that. AJers love to take action. So, what are some things that we can do to help make the fashion industry a more compassionate one? What are some things that just little old us can do?
Yeah, like little actionable tips that we can do. So, like, don't let the conversation die here. Talk about it with your friends and family. Let them know that next gen materials are more sustainable. Share content from Animal Justice or PETA or Collective Fashion Justice, and bring them to these kinds of events and sign petitions from these nonprofits. But one thing I like to do too is, the one big problem is like a lot of people just don't know these materials exist. And like I was saying before, it's like even the sustainable fashion experts. So like let the brands, your favorite brands know you want them to use these materials. So one thing I'll do is say
Great idea.
Pardon?
I said that's a great idea.
Yeah, because they don't know, right? And so if you comment on their Instagram, like if a shoe brand follows me, I'll go to their recent post and I'll say like, oh, I would love these shoes if they were made from a plant-based leather, not animals, And there's plastic-free vegan leathers now. Did you know? And like just little things like that because they just don't know.
I love that. So that's a great action is if you have a brand that you really like, to be able to just send them an email and say, hey, have you considered using some of these really sustainable, cruelty-free, textiles in your designs? I love that. And if you have a few friends that can send it in, then even better. So again, this is and if this is something that's really close to your heart, here's a campaign. Find a designer, find a company, and create a positive pressure campaign. So love that. Okay, last thing, Vicky, that I just want to ask you about. I love how you talk about the diversity of vegan fashion. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that? And do you find that it's even more of the case of diversity as far as vegan fashion goes?
I mean, I think fashion in general has been getting more diverse. For vegan fashion, there's, it's for everyone, no matter your background or personal style. There's so many alternatives. For example, saris, which are a traditional attire for South Asian people. They wear these silk garments normally, but you can make them from vegan silk now. And with our show, we've had so many diverse designers. We've had a male couple from Beijing, China, and they showed their gender fluid designs. They were so nice. They invited my partner and I for dinner. They're so nice, and because they stayed here for a little while. And then we've had a Southeast Asian Indigenous designer. We've had a faith-based designer a couple times, and she's Muslim, and it's very important to her. Like her whole thing is showing that modest fashion can be stylish in the same way that we're here to show that animal-free fashion can be stylish. And she was the one I was thinking about earlier, where she was like, it's evil to use animals, like a lot of them care about these things, and we care about things too. And we want to let people know we're balancing a lot of things. So it's very intersectional. We care about many issues, and we align with people from different backgrounds. It can be for anyone. And then also I want to point out, it doesn't always have to be like a dichotomy where it's, like veganism versus Indigenous communities. I think it's like the Union of Indian Chiefs in BC, the BC Union
Assembly
Indian Chiefs. Sorry if I'm messing that up. The Union of BC Indian Chiefs, they are very keen to ban fur farms, right? And so we are too, as so many organizations are working with them, so we can all work together on shared goals.
I love that. Yes, absolutely, Vicky. So thank you so much for inspiring us and equipping us to be able to do advocacy for vegan fashion, and of course for the animals that are abused in the fashion industry. This was really valuable. If we can come back to gallery view, Kirsten, and I just would like for our AJers just to give Vicky a little, AJ, thank you for coming out today and sharing with us. Thank you so much, Vicky, and thank you for all the work you're doing. You are a heartfelt, a glamorous spokesperson, and we so appreciate you being on the animal side. Really, really love to see you. And I hope everybody will get a chance to go and see the vegan fashion show when it hits your city, because eventually it will. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for churning out today. Don't forget to vote in the election and make sure you're checking out Animal Justice's guide on animaljustice.ca to find out more about how you can help advocate for animals in this election. Thank you so much, Vicky.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye folks. Have a good one.